I'm making money a priority in my 20s for it not to be a priority in my 30s. Money has always been an uncomfortable subject for many of us. As a kid, did you know how much money your parents were making? What about how much you spent on groceries? Do you know how much money your partner is making right now? Do you really know what inflation is? The lack of transparency in this topic is, I think, one of the biggest reasons why so many of us are financially irresponsible. And that's what I want to talk to you about today.
New York City employers are starting to comply with a new salary transparency law.
Federal Reserve raising interest rates by 50 basis points to a new range.
How much do you make per year?
Six figures.
10K a year.
Hi, my name is Saida, and this YouTube channel is going to be dedicated to money, productivity, and planning. I thought long and hard about how I would start this video, and I thought I would talk to you about the three biggest turning points of my life when it comes to money, three biggest lessons that I learned about money. And as I do that, I will tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in a poor area of Almaty, a beautiful city in Kazakhstan in the late 90s and early 2000s. At that time, Kazakhstan just gained its independence, so everything was in chaos. On top of that, both of my parents are immigrants. My father's side ran away from China's autocratic regime in the 50s, and my mom moved to Kazakhstan from Russia by herself for work during the collapse of the Soviet Union. They did everything they could to build a solid foundation when the earth was shaking under their feet. From selling toys and noodles to my dad opening his very first restaurant. I grew up in a house of 12 people living in it, and we shared 2 toilets. We would also rent out some of the rooms to our Chinese friends who came with their products from China to sell at the cheap market nearby. These very humble beginnings lasted for about 10 years of my life. Then we moved to what someone might call a middle class. My dad's first restaurant finally started turning profit after about 2 years of being a sinkhole for families' investments. As a kid, I didn't know what was happening exactly, except I knew that my father and just my parents overall, they seemed happier and a little bit more relaxed. And this was also the time when we started taking our first rare trips abroad. I had so many questions at a time. How did we go from, vacationing by a small pond near our house to an annual trip to Turkey? Why did we finally fix our broken sink? And why does every grown-up in my family seem a little bit more at ease? My father was clever enough to talk to me as an adult and explain everything. He openly talked to me about money, how much he was making, maybe not the exact numbers, but I understood that things were changing, how finances were spent in our family, and how he always preferred to reinvest into his business rather than doubling our lifestyle. That was the first big money lesson that really left a mark on me. If your earnings double, don't hurry to double your spendings. By the time I was 15 years old, my father had 5 profitable restaurants and kept telling me about his growing earnings. But we still lived the same way. We still lived in the same apartment that we moved into 5 years ago. We still shopped at cheap markets and zero on occasion. My parents also believed in education. They always said that there are only 2 things in the world that are worth investing money in: education and good food, like true restaurateurs. To improve my education, he sent me to China by myself. I quickly learned what it's like to take care of my own budget. He had a certain amount of money allocated for me every month, and I learned how to structure my food, entertainment, activities, and education to make sure that I stayed within that budget. So that was the second biggest turning point of my life, being responsible for my own budget. I learned what it's like to plan my meals, how to prioritize and choose friends and activities, and learned to consciously say no to myself. When I finally worked it out, it felt like I owned my own life and wasn't succumbing to circumstances. I moved to Canada after high school and got into U of T and studied statistics and economics. And no, I'm not going to say that studying economics taught me about world economy and I learned so much. I think I did learn a lot, but honestly, I got good grades without understanding at all how all of that applied to real life. Instead, I stuck to the 2 money lessons that I learned before and stuck to my roots and wasn't afraid of work. I worked throughout my university years and almost every summer. However, my living was still heavily supplemented by my parents' money, which I was and still am very grateful to say. As soon as I graduated, I found my first job and started living off of what I made. That was also the year when I got married. My husband and I started to live together, save money, and work on our budget together. And after a little while, we had around $100,000 saved up. That was and still is a very big number to us. I never felt as free as I did when we hit that goal. However, I noticed that my savings account at RBC was giving me only 0.25% in savings. So we were gaining about $20 every month. And that's how I learned about other ways where my money could be. I learned about EQ Bank, and eventually I got to investing. And that made me realize that I shouldn't let my money just sit at the bank. And with everything that was started during the pandemic, and now when the interest rates are rising, finally, all the things that my professors at the econ class were talking about started to make sense. It wasn't that long ago, but I think we finally have a really good grasp on budgeting and the right mindset towards money. This is the knowledge and experience that I want to share with you here on YouTube. I want to build a community of people who are similar to us, who want to be as responsible with their money as possible and still enjoy life. But I also want to learn from this community and grow with you. The recession is coming and it probably won't be a typical one. My husband and I hopefully will be buying our first property, living abroad for a little bit, and much more. This is all to say that we'll be having a lot of fun on this channel this year. I won't pretend that I have everything figured out. I know that what we're doing in the stock market might not be right. I don't know if buying the first property in 2023 is the right choice, but I want to share my journey with you. I hope that on this channel you will see us succeed, which might motivate and inspire you, but you also might see us fail, which will hopefully act as a preventative measure. And if you want to share your experience, I would love to talk to you and interact with you as well. Either way, join us on this ride because it's going to be fun, productive, and hopefully very insightful for all of us. Subscribe and share this video with your friends, and thank you so much for tuning in.